I think today the finance minister brought us good news. The first point he made, which for me is very important, is that he is not coming to Parliament to ask for additional money. That is to say, the appropriation we made for government in the 2021 budget will be complied with. I think that was very important, but it wasn't just that. Because the revenue and the expenditures have been managed well, he is also not asking Parliament for any additional taxes. That again was very important. And in spite of that, as he indicated, all the major has been preserved. The free SHS has been preserved. The roads agenda has been preserved. The hospital for every district as a project has been preserved. The teacher training...
Almost a year after announcing that, we're now hearing August 17 is the day that the commencement of the construction itself will begin.
Which construction?
The construction of the 111 hospitals that you referenced to in terms of...
Of course, the basic work had to be done. But the important thing is that not only is the minister not asking for more money, not only is the minister saying that I do not want to bring additional taxes, the minister is saying that all these initiatives will be preserved. The school feeding has been preserved, the pension reforms has been preserved, the LEAP program has been preserved, 1D, 1F interventions preserved, NAPCO preserved, planting for food and jobs, and many more preserved. So my summary is this. It cannot be better than this when the finance minister or government comes to Parliament to announce that I am preserving all the important initiatives that are important for people. At the same time, and I am not imposing additional taxes. For me, this summary was very good, and we're grateful to government for this. We will be looking at the statement into greater detail from tomorrow as Parliament, but I think the summary is what I have laid out, and I think it's a good summary.
For the minority leader, Haruna Iddrisu, if boards are not in place, chief executives are not running affairs, you have no business asking for more money. So for him, it's a sign of how bad things look currently, which is how come the finance minister probably doesn't need more money in order to get the economic actions running.
But well, in March 2021, when we came to this house for the main big appropriation, boards were not in place, deputy ministers were not in place, now deputy ministers are in place. And many chief executives were not in place. And yet, myself, together with Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, together with Parliament, we gave the minister considerable amount to spend for 2021. So if he's saying today that he's not asking for more money, and the response we are giving him that it's because boards are in place, we ought to be asking ourselves as members of Parliament that what were we doing in March when we were giving money, when there were even no deputy ministers in place. Be reminded that I'm no more in the Ministry of Finance. This is a presentation that the finance minister has made to us as Parliament. We will take time and go into the details, and when necessary, we'll be asking government the questions. But suffice to say that in terms of the broad picture, namely that we're not asking for more money, that we are not asking to impose more taxes, but that we are preserving all the important social interventions for people, it's a good summary. I thank you very much.
But he announced and disclosed that when it comes to the country's debt, between January and now, the debt to GDP ratio actually rose from 76.1% to 77.1%. Yes. Your colleagues on the minority side have repeatedly complained about the debt situation. Isn't it a worrying development that we still see it going up, even as calls are made for a slowdown in how much we are borrowing?
It has been a worrying development. and it has come about for reasons we all know. It is a carryover from 2020, when, because of COVID and because of the shutdown of the economy, revenues hugely underperformed to the tune of about 14 billion Ghana cedis in 2020. You also had additional responsibility to find additional money to contain expenditure that you had not even anticipated at the time you read the 2020 budget. The only remedy, as it has been for every single country across the world, was for the minister to borrow more. And that is why we have seen the rise in public debt. But when I look at the deficit figures for the first half of the year, and I see the government's management of the debt, I am clear that government is very sensitive to what has been happening, and that going forward, we are going to see a much slower debt accumulation. But for COVID, I am sure we will not be looking at these figures. And we should even put this in perspective. What has been the debt figures recorded across the globe? Across the globe, what has been the debt figures? And let's see that all the major social intervention programs, the free SHS, planting for food and jobs, allowances to trainees, and all those many social interventions have been preserved. Ghanaians cannot have had a better day today, and we're grateful to government for that.
Many thanks for joining us. That's the Chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, Kweku Kwating. He's also the MP for Boase West there. Deputy Minority Leader James Kluchaveji, who is also a former Chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, is joining us for a quick conversation. Were you impressed with what you heard from the Finance Minister? He says he's asking not for more money or anything.
No, I am not impressed at all. In fact, this is not the first time that media review is done without asking for supplementary budget. This is not the first time. So my colleagues should not portray as if it's a novelty. This is not the first time. It's a media review. It's a requirement of the Public Financial Management Act that in July of each year, come and tell Ghanaians that the budget that I want to execute in the course of the year, this is how I have executed that budget so far. Am I on track? Am I off track? That should be the issue. So the issue for, I'm not asking for additional funds. Suddenly they have changed from comparing debt accumulated in Ghana over the years by previous government, previous presidents. Now they know that they have lost the debate in that angle, and for that matter, they want to compare it with other Togo, Nigeria, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, or whatever. I'm surprised. So I am not impressed at all in this media review.
He made the point that when you compare figures on inflation, when you compare figures on interest rates and related figures, the levels as we have them today, including the fact that in May 2021, we had the lowest level of inflation, 7.3%. The figures in that regard are far better than existed in the year 2016. He referenced that. Isn't that an indication that they're doing better, at least when it comes to management?
No, let me tell you that in accounting, those of us who are accountants, we call something sunk cost. Sunk cost. The costs have been sunk. You have made that expenditure. So you don't talk about it in relation to what happened in the future and what effect it will have on the life of our people. Now, I am surprised, utmost surprised that the minister will still be referring to 2016, 5 good years after he has taken over. Why didn't the minister compare the current level with 2020, 2019, or even 2018, but has gone back to 2016? No, that should not be the way to go. What is happening now? What is the effect of what you are referring to, that inflation rate has gone down on the life of the people? That is more important.
Speaking of that, the coronavirus alleviation program, the finance minister did disclose that an amount of 600 million cedis was allocated. 520 million of that has been disbursed to individuals to revitalize their businesses, and 299,000 business people have benefited from that.
Yeah, that's 2020. That's what we approved in 2020. So giving us that, so it's no news. It's not something that is new, because we sat in a meeting where we took the contingency fund, over $200 million, which should be used to support these small-scale businesses. And then World Bank gave $1 billion. They went to Bank of Ghana to borrow 10 billion Ghana cedis. All these were to support the COVID operation. So giving us that update is not something that we should not be proud of, because it's something that we have done in 2020.
And finally, he made the point that the city has been stable over the next few months, and we can expect that stability to continue going forward. And he referenced the point that usually post-elections, we usually see a spike as far as the deterioration of the city rate is concerned, and that doesn't happen this year. Do they really deserve credit?
How much is the city now? It's more than 6 cities. You know that? It used to be 5 something. Now it's 6 cities. So how stable is that? It is not stable. If you want to buy $1 now, you need 6 Ghana cedis, 30% to be able to buy $1. So the rate is not stable. City is not strong. It's not strong. He should not be coming to tell us everything that we should accept it. Please, Ghanaians, the city is not strong.
Many thanks for joining us. That's James Klucha-Vedi. He is actually the Deputy Minority Leader. The Minority Spokesperson on Finance, Kesi Latifosn, is addressing the media. We would get to him in a while for some quick comments, but Dakwa Newman is a Member of Parliament, well, one of our new members of Parliament here. Many thanks for joining us, the MP for Kaikwe South. Your immediate reaction to what we heard from the Finance Minister will be?
Well, I think the mid-year budget review is welcoming. We're all happy because we know that currently COVID has wreaked a lot of havoc. Apart from the loss of lives, the economy has also been dealt a very serious blow. And so this review is very welcoming to us because we hear from the ministers. He told us that there will be no new introduction of taxes. So when you look at it from that point and you look at the plight of the Ghanaian, you see that we are not further putting the Ghanaian in more of a tight spot. So we're all happy about that. It's welcoming. There's no increase in rates. When you look at the revenue streams, there's no introduction of any new revenue streams. So we're very happy and we're glad.
Do you get the sense the plans as outlined in terms of getting the nation to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic will yield the expected results? The minister made the point that the recovery from the impact has been on since the final quarter of last year. Do these give you hope that that recovery would get better?
Yes, it gives us a lot of hope. We are all aware of the inflation rates. From the end of July 2020, it was at about 14%, maybe 14%, and this year, as at the end of June 2021, we're currently at about 7.8%. This shows that we are on track. The whole idea of this budget that was read in March 2021 was to put the country on track, to help revive the economy. And we can all see that with the figures from the Statistical Service, all indicating that we are on track. What is most important is that we all come together, we work together. It's the implementation, how effectively we implement the budget that will show how the country will recover as quickly as we want it to be. So it all boils down to us. It all boils down to working together. And I believe we are all optimistic that this budget will revive the economy, and the economy will be back on track.
My final question, one thing that's already drawing some reactions on social media, the Finance Minister announced that when it comes to the National Cathedral, it will be commissioned on the 6th of March 2024, and then he went on to make the point that donations are being invited. The Speaker and others should go ahead and donate like 100 cedis each in order to help support the project. The question is, should this be a government priority in these difficult times?
We all understand that things are very, very difficult, but the world doesn't come to a stop because things are difficult. We still press forward, we still move on. It's a project that the government is undertaking, and we all believe that whatever project has started must continue and it must finish. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We are pressing forward, be it the cathedral, be it Agenda 111, everything is on track. And we hope that all these projects will be completed so that the economy is vibrant, so that there's shared prosperity for us all.
Many thanks for joining us. That's the MP for Kaikwe South, Dakwa Newman, there with those reactions to the mid-year budget review statement, as was actually put out by the Finance Minister, Kenneth Oriata. Let's get a few more reactions. The MP for Yape Kushegu John Jinapor is joining us. What will be your initial reaction to everything you heard from the finance minister?
Well, I thought that something positive will come out for the ordinary worker. People are complaining. Whilst you are giving us an average inflation, the truth is that real goods and services, in terms of what affect the ordinary Ghanaian, is skyrocketing. Cement is skyrocketing. Other products, transportation, and the rest are getting very, very expensive. Already, government has announced a minimum wage of just 4%. 4%. And yet the inflation rate is 8%.
The minister sought to explain that. He said the situation that arose is actually something having to do with the condition of the economy. He made the point that negotiations on the wage was around the fact that you can't give what you don't have. So the government doesn't have enough to give even more.
That means that the economy is struggling. So let's agree to the fact that the economy is struggling. So the minister cannot pay salaries. That is the bottom line. You cannot say that your economy is doing so well. Your economy is booming. Your economy is the best in Africa. And yet you cannot even pay living wage. Living wage. Because when you receive 4% and the rate of inflation is 8%, what it means that at the end of the period, the ordinary Ghanaian is going to suffer because your disposable income and your purchasing power would be reduced. I thought that this was a clear opportunity for the minister to cushion the ordinary worker and the ordinary Ghanaian.
So that if the 4% is inadequate, what would an appropriate possible increment have been for you? I recall the minority leader say at least the workers should get 2% increase. This was something he drew attention to on the floor of the House.
Yes, at least a parity, so that even if they are not better off, they are not worse off. But given the situation now, they are worse off as workers.
My final clarification from you, there was a reference to the efforts that have been made to make the GNPC subsidiary Exploco, that's into the various drilling of oil and all, more independent, receive boosted funds so that then they can do better in terms of helping Ghana earn more from that particular industry.
We intend to deal with this matter full throttle and head on. Because when they came here during the ACE agreement, we advised government to increase our stake at that time. At that time, it would have been very, very cheap to increase our stake. Government insisted that they would not increase our stake because we weren't interested. Now the company has found oil, the price has shot up, and you are now going to take a stake at a very, very high price. But like I said, we intend to do a full briefing to the press. We'll give you all the figures and show you how this government has hurt the economy, has hurt the people of Ghana by not taking the advice of the minority at that time.
Many thanks for joining us. That's the MP for Yape Kushegu there, John Jinapor. Let's get a few more reactions. Isaac Adongo is Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Finance Committee. Thanks very much for joining us. The Finance Minister is not asking for more money. He's not introduced new taxes. This should be good news for Ghanaians, shouldn't it?
You can't ask for what you don't have. So it's very clear. You would have noticed that I had actually advised him to resist the temptation to ask for more money because we just don't have the money. And therefore, if he had asked for more money, it would have simply meant he had to go and borrow more. And already our debt situation is dire. So on that score, he just didn't have a choice but to stay with the current budget. Now, if you look at a lot of the things that he said, again, related to what you have said, he said a lot of things that were not in the original budget. Now that you don't have additional money, you are simply deceiving us because where are you going to fund them from? You get a point. You have not made additional budgetary appropriation, and yet you are promising new things.
Specifically, what are you referring to in terms of the promises of new things?
He went on and on with the CARES program, and the CARES program largely is capital intensive, and yet your capital budget for the first half is just about 6.3 billion. So where are you going to get the money to fund those programs? But my major problem is that everybody knows that our economy is facing heightened vulnerability. The first challenge of our economy is that we basically are using 91% of our revenue to pay for interest costs or to service our public debt. Now what that means is that government has only 9% to fund other expenditures such as compensation, goods and services, and capex. You can't run an economy like that. This is an economy that is basically gone. That's what it means. Now, if you look at the minister's own statement, he's now saying that in addition to this situation, they are now even going ahead to borrow to now pay part of the interest costs. So our primary balance is now 7.3 billion. What it means that in addition to using revenue to pay for the interest costs, you are borrowing now to pay for additional interest costs. Okay, and when you are borrowing to pay for your interest costs, what we are simply doing is that you are compounding your public debt. That is why we normally have to provide in our budget the payment of interest, so we have only the principal outstanding. Now, in addition to the principal, we are also borrowing to pay the interest costs, which means our public debt is no more just the principal, but also the interest. So you can see the level of heightened vulnerability that we are facing. Now, the other major challenge, particularly in an economy that is actually being classified, and there was a research that was done by HAVEC, the World Bank, and Goldman Sachs that says that Ghana has the highest outstanding Eurobonds to GDP. Now, what it simply means is that the rest of the other countries are borrowing from the Eurobond and they are growing their economies, said that the Eurobond as a proportion of the size of the economy is small. We are borrowing a lot from Eurobond, but then to the size of our economy is small. It means we are borrowing the money and we are not investing the money in areas that will grow the economy.
The defense from the minister and even the chairman of the Parliament Finance Committee is that in these times of COVID-19, there is very little window in terms of raising more funding beyond borrowing, which is how come they've had to do that. And then they make the point that all over the world, the debt rates of all other countries are rising, and Ghana is not an exception. Do you think this explanation is
number one with the highest outstanding Eurobond? And I demonstrated to you before that by 2019, when we didn't have COVID, we're already spending 72% of our revenue on debt service. Okay? I demonstrated to you that by 2016, our economy was spending only 66% of revenue on debt service, which means that we had 34% to cushion us. And for an economy, when we talk about an economy that has buffers and can take shocks, you will notice that the impact of COVID was about 14% additional expenditure. That 14%, if you take it out of the economy that John Mahama left, which was having about 34% buffer, you will still have about 20% to fund. Now, this economy just didn't have a buffer. So with the slightest push, you have no headwinds, and then you are gone. So I am saying that I wanted to see the minister take the appropriate steps to restore credibility to the economy. We have just been downgraded by Fitch, and basically there's nothing in this that suggests that any investor must have confidence.
You think he missed that opportunity to restore confidence in the economy going forward, which is the point you're making? So then,
it is not just,
what do you think the likely impact of that would be?
Not just the opportunity that he missed, but he re-emphasized the deception that this government has been giving to international investors by continuing the conversation of our current sustainable bonds and creating the impression that the current sustainable bond that we are going to borrow is going to be something different. It is going to deal with climate change and the rest. But the truth of the matter is that we did not approve that $2 billion for budgetary support. If you recall, we approved those $2 billion, said that if the market conditions are favorable and we can get cheaper interest rate on the market, we should go and borrow $2 billion to pay off the 2026 bond. So where is this deception coming from? And you saw that he took another step to continue to entrench that deception. My point to investors is that he does not have any approval to borrow to fund the budget beyond what he has already borrowed. This $2 billion is meant per the approval of Parliament only to switch the 2026 Eurobond. What this means is that the minister is intending to borrow the money and divert it to budgetary support. And that is all that he's planning to do. And that will go ahead to worsen our public debt dynamics. And I have not seen, even though I am mentioning to you that our problems and our level of vulnerability is increasing, I have not seen action to increase revenue. Because the biggest problem we have now, in order to consolidate and in order to get out of the debt trap, is to increase revenue.
He announced the RAISE initiative and said that this is something being done with the Ghana Revenue Authority, which is being rolled out to eliminate sources of revenue leakages.
And yet, what is the performance in the first half of the year? You are losing close to $4 billion, and you are saying we should still continue to rely on this big English? Beyond the English, what is the delivery? The delivery is that you have a major revenue shortfall, okay? And so that cannot be a measure. Tax audit. Listen, show me one budget he has brought here that he has not mentioned tax audit. What has been the revenue? He needs very bold, concrete steps in order to mobilize revenue.
Many thanks for joining us. Isaac Adongo is the MP for Bolgatanga East. He's also the deputy ranking member on Parliament's Finance Committee there, with reactions to the mid-year budget review statement as was delivered by the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta. We'll be getting a final comment from one other MP on the majority side in a while, but in summary, the Finance Minister has been making a number of announcements, including announcing that when it comes to the construction of 111 hospitals, the Agenda 111 as it's been described, the paperwork are almost completed on the 17th of August. From then, we would see that construction work on the ground beginning in some of the areas. He's also been announcing that progress is as far as the National Cathedral Initiative is concerned. He gave a date for the commissioning, which he said will be the 6th of March 2024. He's also been announcing that between January and June this year, there's been the maintaining of 11,174 kilometers of trunk roads, as well as 5,389 kilometers of feeder roads and 2,937 kilometers of urban roads. He's also been announcing the 1 million job initiative going forward, which he says is actually hinged on what is described as the youth bank, where young people will be able to get details on available jobs so that then they can get hold of those. He's also been announcing that there will be the National Ownership, the National Home Ownership Fund, which would see a situation where people can get mortgage, and then it would be at the interest rate of something between 11 and 12%, compared to the 25 to 26% interest rate as it exists in various banks. And then he's also been announcing that as at June 30th, the COVID-19 National Trust Fund had accrued 57 million Ghana cedis, out of which an amount of 52 million cedis had actually been spent. He says with the coronavirus alleviation business support program, there's been the disbursement of 520 million Ghana cedis to 299,000 business individuals. He's been confirming that when you look at the country's debt vis-a-vis the GDP of the nation, it's increased since January up until June from 76.1% to 77.1%. And he's also been announcing that the economy, as it's looking currently, is being better managed and more competently run compared to how it looked in the past as far as management in 2016 is concerned. And he's also been disclosing that the economy is on track to coming back following the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the running of the nation generally. So those have been some of the highlights of the Finance Minister's address to Parliament earlier today, and those are some of the disclosures that he's been making to MPs. Aisha.
And of course, that's my colleague Opoku Gakpo in Parliament with all the details from the document that was presented in Parliament today. And of course, we are still on the pulse. He's been speaking with a number of of the MPs who've been reacting to the minister's document presented today, whilst the NPP believe that the document is super because it will lead to the recovery of our economy. The NDC says they do not have any trust in it because they do not find any hope in there for the youth. But let's look at how it went in Parliament. The Finance Minister started his presentation by touting the strong economic growth witnessed in the first quarter of the year, saying government will continue to pursue fiscal consolidation agenda, inflation rates lower than what it was in 2016. Interest rates, he says, as well as exchange rates, obviously comparing to the performance of the NDC government then. The Finance Minister said, and he quotes, I quote, "We are managing the economy with discipline and competence." He, however, said the recovery is only the beginning, making a reference to the COVID-19 pandemic.
We remain fully committed to achieving the fiscal deficit target of 9.5% of GDP for the year in order to not to derail from the objective of returning to the Fiscal Responsibility Act fiscal deficit and primary balance thresholds of 5% of GDP and positive primary balance, respectively, by 2024. Mr. Speaker, the provisional fiscal data for January to June 2021
show that total revenue and grants amounted to 28.3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 6.5% of GDP, against a program target of 32.4 billion Ghana cedis, or 7.5% of GDP. For the same period, total expenditure, including the clearance of arrears, amounted to 50.6 billion, equivalent to 11.7% of GDP, against a program target of 55.1 billion, or 12.7% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal deficit for the period was financed from both foreign and domestic sources. Net foreign financing of 15.2 billion Ghana cedis constituted 68.3% of the total financing and included inflows from Eurobond proceeds. On the other hand, total domestic financing amounted to Ghana cedis 7.1 billion, representing 31.7% of total financing. Public debt development. Mr. Speaker, the total public debt stock as a percentage of GDP increased from 76.1% at the end of December 2020 to 77.1% of GDP at the end of June 2021. This stock includes the financial and energy sector bailouts. Excluding the financial sector bailout, the nominal debt stock as a percentage of GDP is 72.9%. The increase in the debt stock was mainly because of the Eurobond issuance of April 2021, COVID-19 pandemic effect, contingent liabilities, and front-loading of financing to meet cash flow requirements for the first half of this year. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced Africa into responsive to Africa's liquidity and financing need, and is no longer fit for purpose. Africa cannot truly rise unless there's a tectonic shift, Mr. Speaker, in the global financial architecture to support it. To this end, African finance ministers have commenced global advocacy for the IMF to unlend between 25 to 30% of its new SDR of $650 billion to Africa. We are also advocating for the establishment of the African Stability Mechanism and the African Liquidity and Sustainability Facility, akin to the European Stability Mechanism. The African Stability Mechanism will protect the continent against external shocks by providing instant emergency access to financial assistance for countries in financial difficulty. The Liquidity and Sustainability Facility could also underwrite a more effective market in African debt that reduces the high liquidity premium African countries pay for sustainability-linked investments. Implementation of Ghana Cares. Mr. Speaker, with every crisis, the need to restructure and diversify the economy becomes imperative.
Notable among the things the finance minister mentioned, he was not in parliament to demand more money, meaning he was not before parliament to present a supplementary budget. Government intends to stay within limits of appropriations approved in March for the year 2021, and there were no new taxes announced. On revenue mobilization, the finance minister pointed out they were going to focus more on compliance with an initiative dubbed Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement Race and Ghana Cares program, vital to economic recovery to generate sustainable jobs for teeming youth.
Mr. Speaker, to sustain the quality of life for Ghanaians during the pandemic, government subsidized the cost for various categories of household and industrial electricity consumption from April to December 2020. Altogether, 4,772,512 customers benefited from the electricity reliefs for the period. The policy, however, continued for lifetime customers from January to March 2021. Mr. Speaker, as part of government's social interventions for supply of free water under the COVID-19 initiative, the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources partnered the Ghana Water Company Limited and Community Water and Sanitation Agency to ensure the full realization of the objective. The program started in April 2020 and was extended to June 2021 for domestic consumers whose monthly consumption does not exceed 5,000 liters. In all, over 10 million urban dwellers were supplied with potable water by Ghana Water from April to December 2020. This initiative currently supplies free water to a total of about 2.3 million urban domestic dwellers whose monthly consumption does not exceed 5,000 liters of potable water at a cumulative cost of 836.82 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, CWSA, on the other hand, supplied 17.9 billion liters of potable water to rural and peri-urban population of 5.8 million at a total cost of 100.28 million Ghana cedis between April 2020 and June 2021. The recent experience of the COVID-19 pandemic, with its disruptive impact on global and regional value chains, has once again highlighted the need to build a transformed Ghana beyond aid. It is for this reason that in November 2020, government launched the audacious 100 billion Ghana COVID-19 alleviation and revitalization of enterprises support, Ghana Cares, Obatampa program. The first phase of the program, also known as the stabilization phase, was implemented between July and December 2020. It alleviated the immediate impact of COVID-19 on our economy and restored normalcy in the lives and livelihoods of Ghanaians through substantially subsidized water and electricity costs, hot meals and food packages distributed to vulnerable and underprivileged persons, increased allocation for the cab bus scheme to support MSMEs, Ghana cedi 2 billion guarantee scheme established to support large businesses, established skills training programs in collaboration with social partners and faith-based organizations, and passage of urgent legislation to enforce COVID-19 safety protocols.
Let's get more reactions on this. My colleague Opoku Gakpo is on this beats for us.
Aisha, we have the MP for the Nshaiso constituency, Dr. Stephen Amoa, who is also a member of Parliament Finance Committee, joining us as we continue the conversation here. Honorable, thanks very much for joining us. The Finance Minister made the point that, well, he's not asking for more money, no new taxes are being introduced. The reaction from your colleagues on the other side is that it's an indication and a confirmation of their point that the economy is struggling. So then you virtually have absolutely no window to possibly even raise more money to spend. Your reaction, Obi?
I think my brothers from the other side are only trying to display intellectual dishonesty or unconscious incompetence, because these decisions are not made out of arbitrariness. You need to manage the key performance indicators or parameters of your budget extremely well to make sure that you can stabilize your economy and ensure sustainable growth. We are in a situation where we cannot generate a lot of revenue through taxes simply because productivity is almost on hold. Trade activity is very low, industrial activity is very low because of the COVID economy. In fact, World Bank even predicted negative 3.3% growth, and we made 0.4% growth. So a country that because of this situation, you are not taking enough revenue through taxes, your debt levels are also going up against your GDP. What do? The only way you can do things is to infringe more hardship on the people by taking taxes, which MPP government were not ready to let Ghanaians go through already existing hardship because of this global health crisis. 2, we want to manage and respect our fiscal consolidation. They failed to do that, and because of that, they went to IMF. You remember, for as a policy credibility, and because of that, Ghanaian young child after school had to stay home for 5 years. No public employment was made. Is that what they want us to go? No. The fact of the matter is that we understand how to manage the economy, and if we understand how we translate the economy into other areas such as social intervention policies. NDC is known to be social democrat. Tell me any of the pro-poor social intervention policies of national tenacity and credibility that NDC implemented. So they themselves, in their own, contractional fiscal policies as their economic policy base or springboard, they cannot perform. In the economy too, they cannot. What we can assure Ghanaians is that we are ensuring that the hardship will be mitigated. At the same time, we will create jobs. That is why we are raising 100 billion, you know that, for care. Obatampa. And that project is going to ensure commercial farming to attract the youth, engineering, ICT, and also implement government flagship programs. And these are all shown clearly. Go and look at even the banking sector. Interest rate has been reduced from almost 40% to about 20%. Policy rate from about 25.5 to almost 10%. T-bills has been reduced drastically from about 22.5% to almost 14% per annum. These are all signs. Inflationary rate still remaining single digit. It shows that this government is even fantastic.
Are the ordinary people feeling this in their pockets? As is usually the question that comes up.
Take your child free to school, you don't feel it. If interest rate has been reduced, cost of borrowing in Ghana by about almost 18%, you say you don't feel. How do you want to feel it? I'm asking you. And because of the hardship, we give freebies, water, freebies, electricity. Your child is also going to school free. We have raised 100 billion to help people get technical skill acquisition and co. What else? A situation where we even grew beyond World Bank's target. My brother, there is nowhere in this world that any other person who but for intellectual dishonesty or showing his ego trips or unconscious incompetence will not allow this government. The NDC government, even without the COVID situation, between 2016, 2008 and 2016, increased our debt portfolio by over 1,140%. It has never occurred in our history. There was no COVID. Go and check. There was no COVID, but almost even policy rate, the government or interest rate, that time is bigger than the lending rate today. And these are the people talking. They have no clue.
One final point that Isaac Adongo raised that I would seek clarity from you on. You made a point about the CARES program and the new initiatives that are being raised to help deal with the economic situation and create jobs, even in the light of the COVID-19. We also know that even beyond that, there is the National Homeownership Fund, which the finance minister announced. Isaac Adongo makes the point that we heard the minister say no more money is being demanded for. But here lies the case. Beyond what was outlined in the budget in 2021 March, new initiatives are being rolled out. New announcements are being made of different things, including the additional investment in the CARES program that would be made. Where will the money come from if you are not seeking approval from Parliament to spend more money?
But the fact that government has not introduced new taxes doesn't mean we don't have generation of revenue. Already there's existing processes. We just had our year budget, and in the budget, it was approved here in the House, including my own brother Adongo, 100 billion for some of these activities. So why is he saying this? You see, one thing about the NDC, I think they are having credibility issues when it comes to being sincere, respectfully. They are my brothers. The same people complaining that inflationary rate is now 8%. We only increased minimum wage by 4%. When they were in power, inflation rate was 15.4%. Meanwhile, minimum wage was 8%. So the fact is that if Ghanaians can be extremely quiet and observing, NDC, they have no alternative. Look, when they ask them, what's your alternative? They say revenue. Alternative, revenue. Have you heard this before? The alternative to harmonize the key performance indicators of our budget, i.e. your debt levels, your fiscal deficit and stuff like that, they are saying what? Revenue. How could this be alternative? One problem with them is that instead of them sitting down and be honest with them and have the nation at heart and plan well, all that they are interested in is how can we use communist inferior tactics to come to power? Because how can you say that we are doing something wrong when yours was even worse and you had no COVID situation? There is hardship, we agree. But the hardship is as a result of an uncontrollable factor. Look, even our PFM Act, Public Financial Management Act, 2016, Act 921, Section 18, what does it say? 3 conditions: war, natural disaster, health epidemic. Our fiscal rules and policies must be in consultation, be even suspended. So even this is an outlier situation that nobody can analyze this against other factors when things were normal. We are not in normal times, but we are doing normal things. That is what they have to know.
Many thanks for joining us, Dr.
It's a big pleasure. Thank you for this platform.
The MP for the Insha constituency. He's also a member of Parliament Finance Committee there with those reactions to the development here in Parliament, even after the Minister for Finance delivered his mid-year budget review statement. And so we're expecting that from tomorrow all through to Monday and Tuesday, the House will continue its debate as far as this particular statement that's been laid in the House is concerned. We're also expecting that without necessarily offering any specific approval, MPs will be commenting on what they heard from the Finance Minister today, even as the House prepares to take its break. Aisha.
And that was Joseph Opoku Gakpo, who's monitoring events in Parliament for us. You heard he spoke with Dr. Stephen Amwa, who is a member of the Finance Committee and MP for Inshai. So he's been trying to defend issues raised by Honorable Adongo, that even though the government is not asking for a supplementary budget, government is introducing new initiatives. Where will the money come from? And he's been trying to justify that even though they're not asking for a supplementary budget, there are internally generated funds that could be used to fund some of these projects. But the Finance Minister, he says, unemployment exacerbated by COVID-19 pandemic requires an urgent action. And so there will be new programs to address it.
As part of measures to mitigate the impact of unanticipated future socioeconomic crises such as COVID-19 pandemic on Ghanaian workers, government announced in the 2020 mid-year review of fiscal policy the establishment of the National Unemployment Insurance Scheme and training-retraining programs as part of the Ghana Cares for Batampa program. Mr. Speaker, we are currently in the design phase of the National Unemployment Scheme, and key stakeholders are being consulted. The consultations will be scaled up to include more stakeholders and technical experts to ensure that the project design suits the Ghanaian labor market. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the training and retraining component of the program has been accelerated. Government, together with the social partners, have decided to pilot the national training and retraining program in the two sectors that were mostly affected by the pandemic, namely the private education sector and the hospitality and tourism sector. The compacts which have been signed between the Ministries of Finance and the number of MDAs specify specific results to be achieved by the MDAs and the catalytic resources to be provided by the Ministry of Finance. Each compact includes a clear results tracking framework with further releases of funds tied to performance. I'm happy to report that this exciting performance-based arrangement is up and running. The catalytic resources have started flowing and the MDAs are energized and getting on with the activities. The compacts ensure effective and timely delivery of targets under Ghana Cares for 2021. Mr. Speaker, government is demonstrably committed to the nation's economic recovery and eventual transformation as envisioned by the Ghana Cares program. We are innovating new ways to get results. We are engaging all actors to secure keen participation and involvement. We are aggressively mobilizing resources to deliver the program. The recent urgency brought to bear by our youth is appreciated. We will continue to prioritize the opportunities as a means for this transformation journey. Mr. Speaker, despite the generally strong performance of our economy in recent decades, the issue of unemployment and jobs for our youth, who will constitute close to 71% of our population, persists. This situation has been exacerbated by the pandemic, by the impact of this pandemic. Taking the lesson from our recent past, we are deliberately intervening to avoid a jobless economic growth and recovery. Mr. Speaker, at the strategic level, our comprehensive and holistic response to the employment and jobs issue remains anchored on the private sector. It is for this reason that government's recovery program transformation agenda is easing the constraints of the private sector to enable them to expand and provide jobs for the youth. A recent survey indicated that about 50% of local employers report misalignment of or inadequacy of skills in the market. It also reports that at least 50% of new tertiary institutions entrants are enrolling in programs in sectors with no or little growth in labor market. Mr. Speaker, in response to this, we are strengthening the links between education and job market stakeholders. We are also revitalizing the skills development initiatives and the Ghana Enterprises Agency, NEIP, YEA, and CODVET. We are also feverishly working on a scheme that enables the private sector to train new recruits entrants at a subsidized rates by government. Mr. Speaker, our intention of building an entrepreneurial nation is already known. We aim to empower our youth to be at ease and venture into businesses. The cleanup of the financial sector and the invigoration of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is expected to help remove the binding constraints of financing and market linkages for our daring youth. Our focus will remain on establishing a strong value system for entrepreneurship to flourish. Mr. Speaker, recognizing that more needs to be done, government is today announcing a 1 million jobs initiatives to aggressively respond to the needs of the country. This is to promote growth in SMEs, support new ventures, and stimulate innovation and startups.
The minister says the second phase of the coronavirus alleviation program business support scheme to be implemented, and he says the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic presents uncertainties for global economic recovery, and Ghana is not spared. So government will provide $25 million seed fund towards producing vaccines domestically. This will be achieved through the establishment of a National Vaccine Institute.
Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 National Trust Fund was set up under Act 1013 to receive and manage contributions and donations from well-meaning individuals, groups, and corporate bodies. As at 30th June 2021, the COVID-19 National Trust Fund had received a total amount of $57.15 million in cash donations. These donations were made between the period April 2020 and March 2021. As at 30th June 2021, the fund had disbursed an amount of 52.5 million Ghana cedis for various programs as well as procurement of items. Mr. Speaker, since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, government has developed and implemented a number of interventions expressed in the National COVID-19 Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan and the National Strategic COVID-19 Response Plan, July 2020 to December 2024. Mr. Speaker, these plans and related interventions provided a comprehensive framework to mobilize and disburse funds which have proved vital to the success of the national containment and case management measures. Since Ghana recorded its first 2 cases on 12 March 2020, the Ghana Health Service has conducted 1,416,952 tests as of 25th July 2021, with a cumulative positivity rate of 7.3%. Mr. Speaker, Ghana implemented the COVID-19 vaccination campaign as part of the containment strategy and has developed the National Deployment and Vaccination Plan. It is planned that 20 million Ghanaians will be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity. Mr. Speaker, we have upgraded our national, regional, and district cold chain facilities to widen our access to vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna that require -70 degrees centigrade cold chains. These include 16 ultra-low cold freezers, 58 units of ultra-low freezers, 50 normal vaccine refrigerators, 300 boxes to be filled with ice packs, 300 ice-packed freezers, 10 cold chain vans, and 120 temperature monitoring devices. Government has also committed to providing seed funding of $25 million towards the development of the country's capacity to produce vaccines domestically. This will be achieved through the establishment of a National Vaccine Institute.
Finally, let's hear the Finance Minister on security and what plans he has for the sector.
Even though Ghana remains a pillar of stability in the region, the sub-regional securities, and particularly from Mali and Burkina Faso. In particular, the southward drift of the activities of violent extremists, terrorists, and pirates in the Gulf of Guinea have become more widespread, frequent, and deadly with the underlying dynamics. Mr. Speaker, it becomes imperative that we address the existing vulnerabilities and intensify preemptive, preventive, and countermeasures. Mr. Speaker, the government has revamped and retooled the Ghana Boundary Commission since the beginning of 2021 to undertake a strategic mandate of determining and demarcating the land boundaries and delimitation of maritime boundaries of Ghana in accordance with accepted principles of international law. Mr. Speaker, we are also working further to retool the Intelligence Initiative, which serves as a coordinating and intelligence sharing platform with neighboring countries. Mr. Speaker, we'll come to this honorable House in support of the security of Ghana.
And that was the Finance Minister who delivered the mid-year budget review in Parliament. We're still live on The Pulse. Remember, we're streaming live on all our social media platforms. Tweet at us at #The Pulse. My personal handle is at Nana Aisha. We'll take a break. We'll bring you more shortly. Welcome back to The Pulse. Let's get into another interesting discussion. Now, international human rights group Amnesty International is asking government to provide protection for sexual minority groups following concerns their rights are being violated by some individuals in Ghana. Amnesty's concerns follow the recent controversy on social and mainstream media over an anti-LGBT draft bill which proposes prison terms of up to 10 years for persons who either engage in homosexuality, advocates, or connives with others to practice the LGBT in Ghana. But whilst Amnesty International refuses to be classified as an LGBT advocacy group, it also wants the rights of such persons protected.
And those defending their fundamental human rights guaranteed by Article 21 of the 1992 Constitution are thoroughly investigated and those responsible are brought to justice. Ghanaian authorities must investigate harassment, intimidation, unlawful surveillance, physical attacks, and criminalization of human rights defenders, particularly those facing multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. Perpetrators must be brought to justice whether they are state or non-state actors, and victims must be provided with effective remedies. Friends from the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as partners in the business of saving lives and the protection of fundamental human rights and freedoms, the media must not contribute to hate speech, discrimination, misinformation, and hostility towards human rights defenders, including those who stand up for the rights of all of us without distinction. It's important that we remind ourselves and call on government to comply with Ghana's international and regional human rights obligations. Ghana has ratified many international and regional human rights, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The state, and I mean the state of Ghana, has an obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill the human rights of everyone within its jurisdiction, without discrimination on the basis of gender, ethnicity, social origin, political opinion, or other prohibited grounds by the state.
In a related development, the Christian Council of Ghana is throwing its weight behind the anti-LGBTQI+ and hoping that the bill will see the light of day. Joining us for a conversation on this is Dr. Cyril Fayose. But before we get into the conversation, the council has released a statement in some few hours ago, and I'll take you through the statement. The Christian Council of Ghana has keenly followed and participated in the debate on the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family values Bill 2021. The council wishes to state unequivocally that it supports the bill and prays that it will see the light of day. We are ready and willing to participate in the consultative process to make the bill worthwhile. In our previous statement on LGBTQI+, the council has stated the position of God on marriage and homosexuality. We wish to again affirm that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. Homosexuality is therefore a redefinition of the family system other than what God intended when he created humankind. It has no space for procreation and nurturing of children with the love of a father and mother. Homosexuality is an act of perversion and abomination, and it attracts God's wrath. Moreover, all the ethnic groups in our country frown on homosexual unions and relations. In Ghana, marriage is between a man and a woman. We cannot discard our unique family value system for the so-called human rights of a few. It is important to protect our family values, which is the foundation of our nation. Homosexual unions, therefore, do not have a place in our Ghanaian family value system. We, the CCG, therefore, call on all Ghanaians to throw their weight behind the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family value bills, the Bill 2021. We are calling on Ghanaians to support the process through prayers, any other means that may be required. Let us protect the good family system that we have inherited from our forebears. The CCG will continue to pray for the good of the nation. May the Lord bless us all. And it's signed by Reverend Dr. Cyril Fayose. He's the General Secretary, and thankfully he is on the line with us. Reverend, I'm grateful for your time. Your stance isn't surprising, but the bill has been described as insensitive and harsh, especially.
Matilda, for having me.
My name is Aisha, Reverend.
Aisha, sorry. Thank you very much, Aisha, for having me. Yes, the position of the Christian Council is that we fully back the anti-gay LGBTQ plus bill. We do not only back it, but we are part of the movers or initiators of the whole process. The Christian Council of Ghana is part of the coalition on proper human sexual rights and family values, the 4Amweni group. All the ecumenical bodies, including the Christian Council of Ghana and our Muslim brothers and sisters, are part of this group that is collaborating with some members of parliament to push this bill through parliament. So yes, we are fully in support of it. Even though there is some backlash to it, it is now going through the process. So there's room for reviewing it and accommodating the views of those who have some concerns.
So what form of support do you intend to give to this bill, especially during the consultative process, as you suggest, apart from prayers?
Yes, if it comes before the committee, we will also go before the committee and make our position clear on the matter and declare our support for the bill as a whole. So that is, apart from prayers, what we are going to do. And then we'll continue to speak about it as we have just released a statement. We'll continue to tell the whole world that the majority of us are Christians, and this is what we believe. And we want our beliefs to be adhered to.
Now, I mean, right from day one, you've declared support for this and you've condemned activities of LGBTQ+. But from now till the time that this bill arrives and is laid in Parliament, what would be the role of the Christian Council?
What will be the goal of the Christian Council?
Your role.
The role of the Christian Council. Our role primarily will be to advocate, promote proper human promote proper human sexual rights, and and also speak to it, advocate for it, and hopefully it will support the process in Parliament for the bill to be passed, for the bill to see the light of day.
Have you started the advocacy, for instance, at churches, at public places where you have your church members gathered, to also throw their weight behind this bill?
Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, we need not even do that. The position generally in our churches, among our congregants, among our members, is very, very, very clear. Most of them tend to toe the line that the Christian Council, the position that the Christian Council is proffering right now.
How about those who do not toe your line? They are also still church members.
Well, they will be the exception to the rule. Yes, when the opportunity offers itself, pastors who are leaders of the congregation speak to it. And as we have released a statement like this, we believe that our pastors will pick it up and educate the members on it.
All the best, Reverend Fayose. He is the General Secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana. Let's talk about this. It's become an essential part of us because health experts say they are concerned about how the COVID-19 virus is now manifesting itself. According to a lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School, Reverend Professor Kwame Sego, ongoing research by the Department of Medical Microbiology has shown that some persons will report to health facilities with symptoms other than those of COVID-19 turn out to be COVID-19 positive. The Ghana Health Service has expressed similar concerns. Head of Surveillance, Dr. Dennis Laye, has been explaining why some persons who test negative before departure from their destinations test positive when they arrive at the Kotoka International Airport.
We are very confident in our system, and when you start seeing cases rise around the countries in the world, you see the number appearing at the airport also going up. That shows you that the machine is quite sensitive. The fact that you are negative 3 days ago or even 2 hours ago doesn't mean that you will not be positive in the next 2 hours. It's a multiplication. Just moving from negative to positive is just a question of a few minutes, depending on how much the titer is increasing. So nobody can say, and it's also wrong to compare 2 different samples, and in what is, especially even when they are taking different dates, and say when I arrived in the night, they say I'm positive. When I did one the following morning, I'm negative. You have to understand the way the virus is behaving. It's multiplication. So that's what we are dealing with. So I think we just want to say that these things are inaccurate, and it's a way to save all of us. And other countries have even more stricter protocols than we have. Experiencing a third wave, a major spike that can be described as a third wave. There's a high risk that the severe third wave may have a higher, much more severe wave compared to the second if nothing is done. And this is happening because we are also still not adhering to the protocols, and we would have expected a lot more people adhering to the protocol, but we've still not seen enough. We're going to start there's mask surveys to see how people respond and how it relates to the decline or otherwise of the numbers. We still have to look for more isolation centers if the surges continue. We are also non-adherence to isolation by affected persons undergoing home treatment, and that's why we are enforcing more facility isolation. And one of the key challenges we are having is the fact that our vaccination coverage is still low. You said the last one that we talked about the third wave and that we're being evasive. There's a very, very classical definition for a wave. Until you get there, you don't say it. In a wave, you see a stepwise increase in numbers. When you have an increase that is stagnating, that is not a wave yet. And so it was not being evasive. We're just telling you what it is. Now we can see we are seeing an increase, so we can now move in. So we don't going to jump in. People were saying we are there. Forecasting is different from saying this is where we are.
The country's vaccination drive is being intensified with the approval of 2 more vaccines by the Food and Drugs Authority. Head of Vaccines and Biological Products at the authority, Dr. Edwin Nkansa, says this brings the total number of approved COVID-19 vaccines for use in Ghana to 5. They are the Sputnik V vaccine, the Covishield, Janssen, Moderna, and Pfizer Biotech vaccines. In fact, it's the Johnson vaccine. Now, joining me via Zoom is Dr. Samuel Kojo Amwakohene. He is with a COVID-19 ICU team leader at ECHN Health Network, Connecticut, co-founder and president of Global Partnerships, Halodin LLC. I'm grateful, Mr. Amwakohene, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Aisha.
Finally, we're here. We're told that there's a 3rd wave in Ghana. What should we be doing at this moment?
Great question. I think at this moment, one is looking at what is being considered in Ghana as a 3rd wave. It is a 3rd wave. Now you can sort of play with the numbers and look at when it became clear that it's a 3rd wave. One thing I always say is that COVID pathology, or how COVID happens, is something that is rapidly evolving since the beginning of this pandemic. And those of us who have been at the forefront will tell you, COVID pathology, or the disease process of COVID, happens so quickly that you almost always have to be on your game and assume the worst. Clearly, right now, Ghana is experiencing a 3rd wave. The numbers around the country speaks for itself. I think what the nation should be doing is whenever you have a wave and is happening rapidly as it is in Ghana, especially in the Ashanti region or the heavily populated areas, Accra or the Ashanti region, you have to begin to take some stringent measures. And what you do is that you take measures that will help you to sort of curb the rapid increase in the disease burden, or sort of how many people are going into your ICUs, getting sick. You do not want your healthcare system to become overworked. And so you have to put in measures to ensure that you don't get to the peak of that pandemic where you may be forced to take certain actions, like the complete lockdown, where people are now being fed. So what we should be doing, some of it I think the president alluded to this past weekend, but I do believe that the protocols must be enforced at this point. You don't have to have a complete lockdown. What you can do is to look at the areas where the disease burden is so high and have some sort of partial lockdowns, whereby if it's a curfew, you put that in place. If you have to send the police out, you send the police out. Not that they're going to put everyone in jail, but that people are punished. If it's an hour or 2, have them do some kind of communal labor. When people begin to see these kind of things, measures put in place, like the curfews and putting the police out there to ensure the protocol is being followed, I think it sends the signal to the general population that the government is serious about what we're doing. We're clearly in a serious fighting a pandemic that is not going away, and that these are the things we need to do for now. The last point I would say is that in every situation, you have to define what the problem is. Clearly, we experienced the 3rd wave. You have to tell us what the issues are, how we're dealing with it, what to expect, so people don't sort of get to the point of throwing their hands in the air, and ensure that they can continue to sort of hang on, tell them what we're getting, the vaccines when they're coming, because the way of getting out of this is being able to get our people vaccinated. And so sticking to the protocols, doing everything we can to get vaccines at this moment is the way to go.
Now, how different will these 2 approved vaccines by the FDA help in our drive for herd immunity? I'm talking about the Pfizer vaccines and the Moderna vaccines.
It's a great thing. It's a good thing that the Ghana FDA has approved Pfizer and Moderna. As you know, in the United States, we've had mainly Pfizer and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson has come on board, which has been great. Now, there are differences within all these different vaccines. The biggest concern with Moderna and Pfizer is you have to have the refrigeration system within your country intact. You cannot have electric power outages because these vaccines that must be stored at extremely cold temperatures. And so if you approve them, then you have to ensure that you have the refrigeration system intact such that when you are able to get these vaccines, they will be still efficacious. What you don't want is a situation where the vaccines come in and, for example, whether power outages or wherever you have to send them across the country, these vaccines are not being stored or kept under these conditions that the vaccines require to be effective. So it's a good thing that it has been approved, but also the country has to have, things in place to ensure that when we do get these vaccines, we can get the jobs out as quickly as possible and that is being kept under these strict conditions.
Now, the vaccination hesitance and the fact that even though these vaccines have been approved, they look so close to us and at the same time look very far from us. We don't have the vaccines. Even apart from that, people are beginning to get tired of observing the protocols. Now, if we continue this way, how dangerous is our situation, especially when the Ghana Health Service has told us point blank that we are in a third wave?
It's very concerning. I was on a phone call with a senior anesthesiologist from the Consultative Teaching Hospital about 4 days ago. And his concern to me was basically, why are we having all these doctors and nurses who some of them, good number of them, have been vaccinated coming down with COVID-19 again? And I said to him, COVID is different. And I think when you ask that question, I have few thoughts in mind that government can do. You have to explain to people why they should not be fatigued about COVID and sticking to the protocol. People still think the COVID-19 we had 2020 is still the same. Yes, the COVID-19 is the same, but the type that we're dealing with right now is different. Some studies have reported that COVID-19, the Delta variant that went through India and not going through the whole globe, basically it's about 100 times to 1,000 times more potent, more powerful, more infectious than the original variant we had. People must understand that. That's why in the US, certain areas where the disease burden is so high, even vaccinated people are supposed to wear a mask indoors. Whereas a few months ago or weeks ago, if you were vaccinated, you didn't have to wear a mask, irrespective of where you were. So that's something that we need to get. That's a message that must be sort of taken and spread to the citizens about why we need to stick to the protocols. The other thing is the fact that the hesitancy is normal. People have concerns and questions, and you don't blow them off. You really try to explain to them. So what I think the next thing we could do is to have some sort of ambassadorial position where a medical doctor, someone at the forefront, someone who understands COVID, who's taking the shot, able to go out there, explain to the ordinary Ghanaian that this vaccine has been around for months now, getting close to a year. Millions of people around the globe have taken it, myself included. So when you do that, you're telling people, I'm young, I have kids, I'm a medical doctor, these vaccines work. Of course, nobody can predict what will happen 50 years from now. But it's important that we get vaccinated so our economies don't shut down, so that you can wake up and go out to the markets, to the workplace, and be able to feed your family, rather than expecting government to feed you. And government can only do what it can, but it's not going to be able to do our daily chores for us. And so it's a matter of bringing all these different ideas together, and government really staying at the forefront, communicating with the general public. What's really happening is very serious. And if we don't stick to the protocols, and if we don't do what is being recommended, and if we don't have these doctors and healthcare providers going out there. We may be forced to shut down. How long, nobody knows. I think once you paint that grim picture, you let the people see the seriousness of it, then people will be more apt in terms of following the protocol. It won't be 100%, but it's going to help a lot with the spread of the infection.
So what are the possible side effects Ghanaians should look out for with these two? Because we are not familiar with it yet. For the AstraZeneca, we know that we've already seen how it works. But for these two, we do not know how it works.
So Moderna and Pfizer are basically mRNA-based vaccines. Now, all these vaccines will do one thing. They basically boost your immune system, tells your body to make protection against COVID-19 after you've taken the shot, so that if you come into contact with a person with COVID-19, your chances of getting sick with COVID-19 or the Delta variant is much, much lower. Even if you were to get the virus, you may not have, or you will not have severe illness. Now, in terms of the side effect, it varies. And I'll begin by saying this. From about almost a year now, there has not been any severe reactions to these vaccines. And so that's something really reassuring that must carry to people. So that's number one. Number two, immediately, we talk about short-term, immediate effect and long-term. People have experienced what we consider minor neuropathy or neurological symptoms, where in the US, for example, I had colleagues that had took the shot, some Moderna, some Pfizer, and they will have their arm will be a bit numb, but it will go away. And all these side effects have been documented. So far, these two vaccines in the US have been largely safe, and there hasn't really been any significant adverse reactions like death or heart problems or lung problems or any sort of autoimmune disease that has been known to be associated with these vaccines. So generally, these vaccines have been emergency use authorization approval. But I can tell you that they are largely safe. That's why millions of people across the globe, and specifically in the US, have taken the shot and continue to take it.
Now, there were speculations about the vaccines in total, its effects or otherwise on fertility. Have you been able to wrap your hand around it? Exactly what does it do to fertility?
This is one of the questions that a lot of people have been talking about. There's been a lot of what in the US we've considered conspiracy theory. And you get a lot of messages. Sometimes people will make up stuff and it will be going around. In the days of social media, anybody can put anything out. When you come to the medical community, we always say this: if it's not scientifically proven or verifiable, then at that point, people are just essentially coming up with ideas and sort of things that will put fear into the minds of people. There has not been any definitive, documented, scientifically proven research out there clinically that says that taking these vaccines, whether Moderna or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson, has any side effect on fertility.
Has there also been any research to prove otherwise?
As of this point, there has not been such research. As you know, COVID is new to all of us. And so the studies are ongoing. I'm sure we'll find out. But to say definitively, by the same token, that taking these shots will cause infertility, is by the same token, one can assume that that's not true. And so it's a lot of things that people have put out there, a lot of concerns. And these concerns must be alleviated or somewhat explained to people. And that's why it's important that we have some sort of leadership or specific tool that can go out there daily, engage the ordinary Ghanaian, let them know that some of these things you hear are not true, they're not proven. Just like many of the vaccines that we have today that kids get. Back in the days, 20 years ago, when these vaccines came out, people had a lot of concerns and a lot of things were said about it. In America today, some parents still don't give their kids these basic shots, MMR vaccines. But we know largely after many years that these vaccines are largely safe.
Now, this is a question that a viewer just sent to me to ask about whether you can take one dose of for instance, a Pfizer vaccine and then take another dose of Moderna? Is it possible to combine these vaccines, or you need to stick to just one?
So to answer your question, it's very clear. In a situation where Ghana, for example, if I take Ghana, where some people got AstraZeneca vaccine, one shot, and have not been able to get any more AstraZeneca vaccines.
Correct.
You have to ask yourself clinically, if Ghana is able to get Johnson & Johnson, do I take it or do I not? And the answer is very clear. You take the Johnson & Johnson, whatever vaccine the government can procure at this moment. Because in the end, you want to be able to boost your immunity. You want to be able to have that protection against the virus. There's the concern is, can I mix the two? Absolutely no problems. Remember, we've been talking about perhaps COVID-19 vaccines becoming like a flu vaccine that we do take in America. And every year, there are slight changes to the vaccine. It's not the same. And every year you take the shot. So if you took AstraZeneca vaccine 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and you have not been able to get the last dose, but now the country has been able to procure Johnson & Johnson, Moderna or Pfizer, absolutely you take it. That's not a contraindication. That's not an absolute no. But that's definitely what I would recommend, that you take the shot. You want to protect yourself. In the end, the vaccines are doing one thing. They're building your immunity against these deadly virus or variants of COVID-19.
If you took AstraZeneca one shot 6 months ago and they bring in AstraZeneca, do you have to start all over again, or you just go in and take your second shot?
If you remember one thing, that in the UK, they gave it the difference was about close to 2 months to 3 months, and it was okay. In the US, we had only about 2-week interval. And maybe the Europeans did something right, okay? Whereby by prolonging the duration that you take the second shot, perhaps you get better immunity. Okay. That's not a question that anybody knows right now. But if you are 6 months out at this moment, I'll go ahead and take this. I'll take the second shot. I'll take both shots, meaning that I will assume that the immunity I had 6 months ago has gone down, which is the natural progression of any vaccine or any immunity. Over time, it goes down. So 6 months out, I will take the double shot again, just like you'll be taking like flu shots yearly.
I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Samuel Amwakohene, he's a COVID-19 ICU team leader from the ECHN Health facility in Connecticut. We're grateful that you joined us with that education. Now, back here in Ghana, the police in the Ashanti region have intensified enforcement of public wearing of face masks to help curb the spread of COVID-19 cases in the greater Kumasi area. Enforcement of the protocols has become necessary due to a surge in COVID-19 cases. Love FM's Mona Lisa Frimpong visited the Central Business District and reports security personnel have been deployed to ensure compliance.
The Ashanti region has cumulatively recorded 17,898 COVID-19 positive cases with 297 deaths. With 1,135 active cases and the emergence of the highly transmissible Delta variant, health authorities are bracing up for a third wave of COVID-19. Edum, Kwadaso and Oforikrom are the hotspots for the transmission of the Delta variant in Kumasi. Non-compliance to the wearing of nose mask has been high in the Central Business District of Kumasi. This has necessitated the deployment of security personnel to major entry points of the Kejetia market to enforce compliance. Refusal to wear the mask will not guarantee one's entry into the market. After a few altercations, recalcitrant individuals are compelled by the security officers to buy and wear the mask. Some residents of Kumasi explained to Love News how they are adhering to the safety protocols.
But and now so if it's an akasa I say
After the president's address, I can see a number of people wearing masks. It's just a matter of time. People will refuse to wear it.
First week in the year, and now I'm for Canoa, but in next we are now for air theater.
It made me protect myself. To me, mention nose masks. Now I'm protecting myself.
I will wear the nose mask to protect myself.
I bought me home. Yeah, Rene Binyami. It was sent me the nose mask, me protecting myself against that virus diseases. No.
By security foreigners also no.
The security personnel are doing a good job. They are ensuring people wear the mask.
XWO1 Michael Sosa is a security coordinator at the Kejitia market. He observes most individuals only wear the mask after the president has addressed the nation. He assures the public of strict supervision to ensure both traders and customers at the Kejitia market comply with the safety protocols.
When the COVID was not flowing as per the way it was, the wearing of the nose mask also reduces. People decided not to even wearing the nose mask. But when the president came, that was the last time that the president came with it, I think now people are making good use of the nose mask. So for me, I foresee when we are able to educate, or the media comes out with very good educative programs, people will do the right thing.
People who refuse to wear the mask, whether in public or in vehicles, must be arrested.
Okay, so sure. Well, mainly wearing this mask is to protect you from others and others from you. From Kumasi for JoyNews, Mona Lisa Frimpong.
So that was Mona Lisa right there interacting with some people in the market. Meanwhile, a further step taken by the security to halt the virus spread is to conduct tests for all applicants applying for immigration permits. The Ghana Immigration Service has now introduced COVID-19 testing for non-Ghanaians applying for work permits. On the phone to explain more is Head of Public Affairs at the Ghana Immigration Service, Superintendent Michael Amwakwata. He joins me shortly via phone. Mr. Amwakwata, I'm grateful for your time. How different will this test be from the ones that we know, and when does this start?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and good afternoon to your viewers. This one from the Ghana Immigration Service is to further support the Ghana Health Service to control the spread of the COVID virus into our country. And like we know, the incubation period of this virus is such that one cannot really determine when it is going to blow out for you to determine whether one is positive. One could be tested negative, but the next day could be positive. So for us as immigration and as a frontline agency, what we have come up with is that any person who arrives, that's a non-Ghanaian who arrives in the country within 72 hours and intends to stay and apply for a work permit or a resident permit or even extend his stay for a week or two, you have to first of all be tested for the COVID virus. And if you are tested negative, then you can apply for the permit. So this will serve as, let's say, a second level of check from the airports when they come and they are tested.
This new directive, you talk about a fee of 150 Ghana cedis for the test. I mean, what went into the calculation for this cost?
Yes, if you look at the fee that is going to be charged and compared to the current prices around, you realize that what the Ghana Immigration Service is going to charge is if not the lowest, will be one of the lowest, compared to $150 or $50 that is being charged. We arrived at this price because first of all, we want to make it very affordable, even for the ordinary Ghanaian. Mind you, this is not only for expats or non-Ghanaians, but any other person, any Ghanaian who wants to have his status checked can also walk in to the clinic and be tested. So we think the 150 affordability and also to be able to make it very accessible to people so that it will not, although it has a good intention, it will not also serve as something that will drive people away because it is costly. Once they cannot see this compared to what is being charged currently, I think it is in the right direction.
And can this test be conducted anywhere?
Anywhere, as in?
Can someone do the test outside your facility and bring you the report?
No. If you intend to apply for any of our permits as stated in our release, then you have to report to our clinic at the national headquarters, because definitely you arrived in Accra, the capital, where our national headquarters is. And if you have any intention of staying beyond what you have been given at the airport, then you first of all have to come to immigration service. That's why we say within 72 hours of your arrival. And definitely for an expert, for an investor who is coming in, he knows that he's going to stay for a certain period. So immediately you come, within that period, just report to the Ghana Immigration Service headquarters and get yourself tested before you move beyond the national capital.
Mr. Amakohene, I'm grateful this afternoon. Superintendent Michael Amakwata, he's head of public affairs at the Ghana Immigration Service. And now we're still talking about vaccinations because they're once again being hotly debated on in Europe, with over half of the EU's adult population fully inoculated. Vaccine uptake now seems to be declining. This has sparked a discussion about whether or not the unvaccinated should face further restrictions in the public realm. This is bringing DW's Nicole Froelich from Berlin for more. Nicole, why is this causing such controversy?
Well, in Germany, like in many other countries around the world, vaccinated people currently enjoy the same freedoms as tested people. But with the accuracy of rapid tests increasingly under scrutiny and the Delta variant rapidly advancing, some prominent figures here are demanding a rethinking of the current handling. Now, critics argue that restrictions for the unvaccinated, and that would include tested unvaccinated people, would amount to a vaccine mandate through the back door. That governments would maintain their stance, saying, well, it's up to you to get vaccinated or not, we're not forcing you. But that large parts of the public sphere would then be off limits to the individuals in question. Proponents of these measures see it as a way of making vaccines more attractive to those who don't think it's necessary to protect themselves and those around them, but those opposed say it discriminates those who, for one reason or another, don't want to or cannot get the shot. This discussion is, of course, far from the actual vaccine mandates we're seeing in countries like France and Greece, where healthcare workers now have to get a shot to be able to work or receive pay. And that has a lot of people very angry, so much so that we saw violent protests against the measures in both countries over the weekend.
Now, Nicole, speaking of vaccines, the European Medicines Agency just greenlit the Moderna vaccine for children over the age of 12. Does that mean teens are now being vaccinated across the EU?
Not really. The EMA decision is really only a recommendation to EU member states. Every country now has to ratify national use independently. The BioNTech-Pfizer vaccine has actually had the EMA stamp of approval for use in underage patients for quite some time, and not many countries have started administering shots to teens. Denmark and France, for example, already offer vaccination to children over the age of 12, but here in Germany, the Vaccine Commission only recommends use on kids with pre-existing conditions. The committee says there isn't yet enough data on youth vaccination to make a more generalized call, but that argument isn't going to hold up much longer. There have been lots of children vaccinated in other countries, so the data gap is closing. Pressure is mounting not only because around the EU it now seems to be the young, unvaccinated population driving infection rates, but also because immunizing children would take a heavy burden off their shoulders and those of their parents, of course, especially when it comes to education. But in many German states, it's already too late to get kids fully vaccinated before the next school year begins.
Right now, we know it's peak travel season in Europe right now. Many people are once again daring to take trips abroad, but that's got authorities quite worried, doesn't it?
Very much so. 10% of all cases registered in Germany are currently attributed to travelers returning from abroad. Just last month, that was 1%. Right now, people entering Germany only need to quarantine or provide proof of immunization when they're flying in from high-risk areas. But it just seems to be the case that no matter where people go on vacation, they let their guard down. And really, after 1.5 years in and out of lockdown, who can blame them? But the German government doesn't want to sit idly by and watch holidaymakers drive a potential fourth wave. The health minister now wants to tighten the rules for travelers. As soon as this weekend, a negative test result or proof of vaccination could be required no matter where people come from and whether they arrive by air, by rail, or by road. That would, of course, be a major logistical challenge, bearing in mind that there are no border controls between EU nations. But other countries like Poland, for example, have had similar rules in place for some time now. The issue of making mobility and travel safe, though, is truly one of the major global challenges going ahead. This week, we saw the US saying they're not going to lift their travel restrictions for the time being. So the Delta variant really is dampening hopes of travel returning to normal anytime soon.
Oh, thanks a million. Nicole Freilich is from Berlin. She's with the DW. Now, we're back in Ghana, and an illegal pan latrine operating as a public toilet at Old Fadama has been demolished by a joint task force of AMA officials and the Ghana police. The exercise, which is part of the Joy Clean Ghana campaign, was to enforce sanitation by laws that prohibited the use of pan latrines as far back as 2010. After several failed attempts to get the operators of these illegal facilities to upgrade themselves to allowable standards, it was time to crack the whip. Manuel Cranting was with the Clean Ghana team and now reports.
We're somewhere around the Agbogloshi market and Old Fadama, as it is called. Madam Florence Kuchi, of course, I'm leading the team for today's exercise.
We are in the 21st century, but it will interest you to know that people are still using pan latrines for public toilets.
Well, describe to us this pan latrine. What are they?
So pan latrine is a latrine that people defecate inside a bucket. Okay. And when it's full, somebody have to remove it and send it to a place to dispose of. Who carries this thing? Where does the person send it to? All these things are questions we are supposed to answer. And
this is in Accra.
And this is in Accra. We knew very well that by 2010, there was a law passed that nobody should use pan latrine within Accra settings. But still, people are still using pan latrines within Accra settings. And it has been very, very difficult to do away with them. That is why we need this police security to help us do away with these pan latrines within the system.
So this is one of the pan latrines that we are going to access, the very first one on the stretch.
Yes, so information has been given to them already that we are coming. So the people have already absconded and left the place. We are not going to allow you to be here. Since they have left the place, we'll bring down the place. When we are bringing it down, we will know who the owner is.
Their absence to not give any indication that it's already being abandoned. Of course, it's not in use.
It's not in abandoned because the fan is even on. Okay. You see, they did not. If they are deaf, but this fan will not be on. It means somebody just told them that we are here and they have to leave the place. Always when we come, that is what they do. You leave whatever you leave and go, and then they will come back and continue again. This time around, we are not people.
There are people in.
So you can just see people inside using the place.
Okay. And so,
actually, me, I'm not even leaving this area. I'm passing what I feel salty, so I decide to enter.
Okay. But what? How is the place like? The conditions? What's your assessment of the place?
Actually, it's not all that good, man, but it's not bad too.
Now you feel okay?
I feel okay. I can live all right.
You can live all right. Okay. This is it. God is love. A public toilet which exudes absolutely no love from God. Here today.
Are you aware that you are not supposed to operate a pan latrine?
No.
You are not aware?
Yes.
Who carries the pan latrine when it's full?
I don't know.
So where's your sister?
My sister go no.
Your sister go no. So
Yes.
today who is selling here?
To somebody there. I hear that the TV there inside. Where they come to remove the TV?
You hear that the things there. Who was inside? Because the fan is on. Who was inside?
I don't know. I say be now.
Master, if you don't tell the truth, we'll arrest you right now.
I say be here now. I hear that they are broken this, and I know that the TV there inside. So I'm coming to remove the TV.
You came here to talk to
somebody. To talk to somebody.
Yes, I asked them. So when I came, I said they are coming to. They also was here that they have broken.
We want to see the person who was inside here before. If you don't,
that one they will talk
then
to.
You don't have the right to take anything from there. We don't know you. If you can't bring somebody who was working there, you have no right to go in there.
It's been torn down. I could just get a bit closer and describe to you what happened. So you are seeing the pans down there, and these are huge bowls that people access when they sit up there, they squat up there. There are perforations in the wooden pallets that are on top there. That's the excrement goes through the perforations into the bowl. Now several people, close to 50 people, are allowed to use it, and then when the bowl is filled to capacity, a human being, of course, comes to carry it and then discharge it into the lagoon.
But if something like this is coming on, then they should alert them earlier on so that they can change from this structure to the modern.
Because we're open flies in the coast. Hey, oh wow. A mouth, a bankuning kruma.
Oba ojimi jinde crop to do anima me see me ntro hondi but dinik nyina na we say nyame hwe o de
no de nyame na hwem enye EMA na
enye obia o enye bia na government bia na hwe serious nyankopon na hwe
yeti hasie no enye yesu yepe yesu enya kwa ka tra islegon mi kandada o yesu enya department sabia enye obi na be ka ho na mpe yi.
Masemo na mutina hana share lagoon mo bola bebre
na kwa bi suntina msumiti ha minya islegon kwa msumatina.
Indeed, he accepts and admits that this particular structure, in its shape and form under operation currently, is not what it's supposed to be. However, he makes a point again that the AMA, by extension, government should find alternatives, workable alternatives for them, as they are the ones who are going to suffer the most by the exacting of this particular exercise. I've spoken to some of the people who say,
you wouldn't mind, we can just have a look. Have you seen this tank?
Okay, we could go there.
It's not even up to 150 meters.
Yeah.
So what is he saying, that there's no alternative unless they go to Bimbla station? And there are even more inside, you understand? That's just around this enclave alone. We have more than 5 standard toilets around this lake. And we can take you to all of them.
Manuel Cranton with that report. For 4 years, a school building sat idle while students of Osu Presby Boys studied in a dilapidated structure. After a long wait, students of the Osu Presby Boys School have finally been relocated to the new structure. The students could not hide their excitement. My colleague Judith Awochetando, who followed up on this story from the onset, visited the school and now reports.
Avoiding cheating. Yes. To prevent accidents.
This is how teaching and learning should look like. For 4 good years, this building sat idle while students slummed in a dilapidated school structure. The story is different now.
Well, you can see for yourself. These students are no longer scorched by the sun. Initially, these boys of the Osu Presby cluster of schools would have to remove their shirts in order to fan themselves as a result of the excessive heat in their previous dilapidated structure. But now things have changed. After constant reportage on the bad nature of their school, these boys have finally been moved into a fully furnished structure.
when we were there, the sun was coming into our class. Then we have heat, no fresh air. So by now when we came here, we have fresh air, we have fans and lights in our class, and we have beautiful washrooms and all those things. When we were there, when there was no social distancing, we were afraid. We were afraid because of the COVID. Maybe someone has it in the class, then it will affect all of us. So we were afraid. But now when we're here, when there was social distancing, we don't have any problem again.
When we were there, some of us, the uniform we wear, the decks always tear the butt of our uniform. But when we are here, we have new decks, and the decks that we have one single. So one person sits on single deck, so we have space on the decks too.
Actually, the thing is, because of the potholes, if you are walking, you could have fallen down, so that doesn't make some of the people to pay attention. But now that we are here, when we are learning, everyone pays direct attention to the teacher and what he's saying.
Not only do students share in this joy, teachers as well. Madam Lydia Ochre is head mistress of the Osu Presby Boys School.
From the other side, life wasn't easy there. Classes were going on though, but teachers and pupils were not feeling comfortable at all. The heat, the dust, and all other things were not actually helping us. But when we moved here, by the grace of God, we are having a very nice place. Lessons are ongoing. Learners are also enjoying.
The Korle Klottey Youth Alliance has also been pushing for the relocation of the students for a while now. The new development has indeed brought great excitement to them. Niotin Krayankra is executive director of the group.
We're very much excited that our efforts has not been in vain. We've pushed for it, and today the kids are learning in a very conducive atmosphere. This is all we're all fighting for in Korle Klottey. Our alliance is basically to shape up the constituency or the community to have everything easy for them. And today you can see when you went around, they were all excited. This morning they were happy for their break. They were happy in the classroom. They've had new chairs. They've had everything. So we'll say, well, I thank everybody that puts in their efforts, especially the municipal chief executive.
Although students of the Osu Presby Boys School have been moved into the new building, other students within the cluster still remain in the previous structure. Municipal Chief Executive for the Korle Klottey Municipality, Ni Ejeteria, who spearheaded the movement, however told JoyNews that more work needed to be done, like the provision of potable water.
Because there was no water and also at the point no electricity, all these things need to be sorted. And that is what we have done now. So now, once the concrete platform is matured enough for the water to sit on, and I believe that is sometime next week, all the children can move into the school now.
Well, some officials and beneficiaries of the new structure had something to say to JoyNews.
We are grateful to JoyNews. We even saw the pictures you took the other time, and I was shocked. I said, wow, how can a lady climb up a car for our sake? Yes, we are grateful to you. We hope that you continue to do this good work to help all those who are in need.
Indeed, there's a lot to smile and scream about. Judith Chitando, JoyNews.
Back in the studio, my name is Aisha Ibrahim.